What would you say to them? Because right now with the situation and the way that they're trying to escalate the situation, it doesn't seem that any good outcome would come out of this for Israel, and the way that they're trying to attack Hezbollah. And because of the conflict in with Hamas, they're just involved in Gaza, and how they can just focus on all of these fronts on their part. Can you understand that?
Well, I mean, first of all, when evaluating what's happening in Israel today, stop talking about Israel. Stop. You're talking about the wrong thing. Remember what I said? If you got that little piece of missile and you get it wrong on your initial take, and you say, aha, that's an assumption we made now based upon this. And then we go down and we do this whole analytical chain. But because we got it wrong here, all of this doesn't matter because it's fantasy. If you start by talking about the security of Israel, you're talking about the wrong thing. Because if you talk about the security of Israel, then everything we're talking about makes no sense. Because Israel is destroying itself, literally destroying itself. It's destroying itself economically. It's destroying itself socially. It's destroying itself domestically in terms of politics and globally in terms of geopolitics. There's nothing going right for Israel right now. Nothing. And everything that's going wrong is leading Israel down a path of its imminent collapse. Literal collapse. Israel is committing suicide as we speak. And many Israelis know this. They recognize this. So stop talking about Israeli security. Start talking about Netanyahu's political legacy. This is about the preservation of a narcissist, of a man who has put himself above Israel, above Israeli security. It's only about Netanyahu and what can preserve his political viability and the political viability of the very limited coalition that he's built around himself to govern. A coalition, in order to survive, needs to project itself as a wartime coalition, because that's the only way it can justify its continued hold on power. If Israel were to head down the path of peace, if a ceasefire was arranged, then Israelis would be called upon to solve a whole host of issues, which are the source to the problems created by Netanyahu and this coalition. So everything that's happening, whether it be a conflict with Hezbollah, continued violence at Hamas, it's all about Netanyahu preserving his hold on power. And as such, all these problems we talked about for Israel will just continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And the Israelis are increasingly coming to that awareness. The question now is, what do they do about it? But here's the problem. There's a whole bunch of people that were in the streets, hundreds of thousands, that were demanding Netanyahu's resignation over the hostages. And there's many people outside of Israel that said, see, there's sanity in Israel. Hundreds of thousands of people rallying against Benjamin Netanyahu. Yeah, that's exactly right. Rallying against Benjamin Netanyahu. You know what they weren't rallying against? Genocide. They weren't rallying against violence against the Palestinians. The vast majority of Israelis today support the continuation of violence. They support the concept of a greater Israel. They support Zionism. So even when you get rid of Netanyahu, there's no solution to this problem. Israel is going to die. It has no choice, because in order to survive, Israel has to do things that it can't survive. In order to survive, Israel is going to have to solve its geopolitical problem. That can only happen with the creation of a Palestinian state. Right now, the term being bandied around is a two-state solution. Okay, let's talk about that. What does that mean, a two-state solution? Well, first of all, you have to overcome, who's going to govern the Palestinian state? Israel has put forward a precondition that says Hamas will not be allowed to govern. Well, Hamas is getting around that by working with the Chinese and the Russians and the other Palestinian factions to create this joint governing authority, of which Hamas will be a part of, but it won't be called Hamas anymore. And they're going to try and slide that in there. Even if Israel says, okay, we'll work with those guys. What do you do about the West Bank? You see, Israel's been engaged in illegal actions in the West Bank. The West Bank settlements will have to be dismantled. There's no other option. You can't have a two-state solution and have West Bank settlements. Incompatible. And so, but if Israel, in order to survive, Israel has to, take itself down a path of viability for a two-state solution, which means Israel will have to dismantle the West Bank settlements. There you'll have a civil war, a literal civil war. The West Bank settlers have been armed. They are an independent militia. The police force in the West Bank has been politicized to the extent that their sole job is to empower the settlers to continue to murder, rob, steal, rape, whatever they do against the Palestinians. This all has to go, and it's not going to go peacefully. There will be violence. And I don't see Israel embarking on a policy of self-destruction. So, right off the bat, we're saying that a two-state solution isn't going to happen, and it isn't going to happen. So now what happens? Because Israel can't create a two-state solution, the only answer now is going to be a one-state solution, and that isn't going to be Greater Israel. That's the Israeli solution for a one state. Yeah, we already have it. Call it Greater Israel. Get rid of the Palestinians. It isn't going to happen. What's going to happen is Israel, in launching these rearguard actions, is going to continue to see its standing in the world community deteriorate. They're going to continue to see domestic, divisions as Israelis begin to recognize that the only choice they have is a two-state solution, but now they have to dismantle, so there's going to be problems there. The economy will never recover from where it is right now. In order for the economy to recover, you're going to need Israel to normalize relationship with states who say we can't normalize until there's a two-state solution. And we already said that isn't going to happen. So the economy will continue to deteriorate, and the security situation will never stabilize. Even with a ceasefire, as long as Israel's at odds with its neighbors, as long as you have issues in Hamas, there's going to be violence or the threat of violence. And eventually the combination of the economic collapse of Israel with a social environment that isn't conducive to the image that Israel tries to sell to the world of this peaceful nation where people come in prosperity and live in harmony with everything. That isn't going to happen, and people are going to flee, and that's the death of Israel. When you get more people fleeing than are coming in, there is aliyah. Yes, there's a romanticism attached to Israel amongst the Jewish diaspora, and tens of thousands of Israelis return every year, maybe hundreds of thousands. I don't know. But what we have right now is hundreds of thousands of Israelis leaving. And when that number turns into the millions and is sustained over a period of time, you'll see the Israeli population drop from its current level of 9 million. If the population drops down to 6 million to 5 million, and the non-Jewish population is 9, 10, 11, 12 million, 15 million, demographics alone dictates the outcome, which is a single state solution called Palestine. And I think that's the direction we're heading right now.
Do you think that the